The conference room was filled with the hum of voices. Taehyung at the head of the table discussing strategies and plans with his team. His voice was firm, his presence commanding, but your mind was miles away, lost in a storm of memories. It had only been a week, but the wound felt fresh. The rain poured heavily that night, the kind that blurred the world into shades of grey. You stood there, drenched, your clothes clinging to your skin, but nothing mattered more than the 5 long years of silent love, of waiting, of hoping. You had heard from others, seen the signs he had loved you for even longer. 7 years to be exact. Neither of you had ever spoken the words until that night. What do you want, Vine? Why did you come now? Jungkook's voice was cold, his face a mask of indifference. His eyes, however, betrayed him. They held the storm of emotions he fought to hide. You looked into those deep, dark eyes and gathered every piece of your shattered courage. I love you, Jungkook. His eyes closed, his fists clenched. The rain continued to pour, a fitting backdrop to your heartbeat. He opened his eyes, his jaw tight. I'm sorry, we are not made for each other. You had braced yourself for rejection, prepared your heart for his words, but nothing could soften the blow. Your lips trembled as tears mixed with the rain. Shankar, please don't say that. I know you love me. He dropped his gaze to the wet ground. I said I don't. Now leave. His voice was hard, but the way his body turned away from you told a different story. He couldn't bear to look at you, couldn't show the tears that threatened his own eyes. You stood there, defeated, the rain washing away the last of your hopes. Slowly you turned, your feet heavy, as if the earth itself was pulling you down. Jungkook's body remained still, but his heart crumbled with every step you took away from him. Take her home, he ordered, his bodyguard, his voice strained. You snapped back, your voice laced with anger. I don't need your consent. You walked away, never looking back, but if you had, you would have seen him, a broken king in the rain, biting his lip to keep the sobs at bay, his body trembling as if its very soul was leaving him. Ryan, a hand waved in front of your face, snapping you back to the present. Jia, your friend and colleague, looked at you with concern. Thang has been calling you. You blinked, your surroundings returning to focus. The conference room, the murmurs of people leaving, and Theon's piercing stare. I'm sorry, I was thinking about something else. Theon's brows knitted together. Be alert one, stay in the present. You nodded, your cheeks blushing in embarrassment. As the meeting ended and the room emptied, you moved to leave as well, but Theon's voice stopped you. One, you turned, finding only the two of you in the room. His expression softened, and his voice held a seriousness you rarely heard. Are you still thinking about Jungkook? You hesitated. Oppa, that's not. He raised his hand, silencing you. Listen, Dad has arranged your wedding. It's in a week. His words were gentle, but the truth hit you like a slap. Jungkook already rejected you. It's time to move on. Don't upset Dad, okay? Your lips parted to protest, but no words came. You simply nodded, your body moving on its own as you left the room. The door closed behind you, the sound echoing through the empty hall. Inside the conference room, Taehyung's calm facade shattered. He threw the file in his hand against the wall, the papers scattering. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of the table. You covered Jungkook. The weight of the situation pressed down on him. He had seen the love in Jungkook's eyes, the same love he saw in yours. But Jungkook's fear, his stubborn pride had pushed you away, and now you are being forced into a marriage neither you nor your heart wanted. As Tung stood there, his chest heaving with frustration, a plan began to form in his mind. He wouldn't let this happen, not to his sister, not to the girl who deserved the world. And far away in the dim light of his office, Jungkook sat alone, his hands held a small pendant, a gift he had once planned to give you. His tears fell onto the silver surface. his body a picture of agony. He knew he had made a mistake, but he believed it was too late. What he didn't know was that Taehyung wasn't one to back down, and the story was far. Jungkook sat in his dimly lit office, the pendant in his hand. He kissed it gently, the cool metal pressing against his lips. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears as he whispered, "I'm sorry, Van. I'm really sorry." He closed his eyes, drawing in a shaky breath, and carefully placed the pendant back into the inner pocket of his blazer. His hands were still trembling as he unbuttoned the jacket, masking the chaos with him. "Hi, Vine." Soon your fiancé stood near his car, a hopeful smile on his face. His neatly styled hair and perfectly pressed suit screamed of effort, but you could barely muster a polite smile. "Hi," you responded, your tone flat, uninterested. You weren't in the mood for pleasantries. Soon, seemingly unfazed by your lack of enthusiasm, stepped closer. "I was thinking maybe we could go out for dinner. There's this new Italian place." You sighed, looking away. "No, I'm not really in the mood, Son. Maybe another time." His face fell slightly, but he tried again, his voice soft, almost pleading. "Please, fine, just a quick dinner. I promise it will be nice." You opened your mouth to refuse once more when a voice cut through the air, firm and sharp. She said no, right? Why are you forcing her? Your body went rigid. You didn't need to turn to recognize the voice. You knew it too well. Your eyes widened as you turned slowly, your breath catching in your throat. Jungkook stood a few meters away, his dark eyes locked on you. His presence was overpowering, and everything around you seemed to fade away. The bustling city noise dulled, the cool breeze ceased to exist. It was just you and him. His expression was unreadable, but the intensity of his gaze burned through you. Your mind raced. Would he run to you, pull you into his arms? Would he say he was wrong, that he loved you too? Your heart thudded painfully against your ribs as he spoke, spark within you. "Who is he, Vine?" Soon's voice brought you crashing back to reality. You blinked. The dream shattering as the world resumed its space around you. Jungkook's jaw tightened, and he took a step forward. His movements were deliberate, controlled. He walked until he was right in front of you. His eyes never left yours, as if searching for something, an answer, a sign, anything. "Someone her heart wants," Jungkook said, his voice low but clear. His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Soon frowned, his confusion evident. "What does that mean?" He forced a chuckle, a dry, humorless sound. "Don't mind his words, son. He's just my brother's best friend, that's all." Jungkook's expression remained stoic, but you saw the flicker of pain in his eyes, the brief flash before he buried it beneath his usual mask. You refused to show weakness. Your anger bubbled beneath the surface, and you directed it at him. "Let's go, Son," he said firmly. "I'll come to dinner with you." Son's face brightened immediately. He extended his arm, offering it to you. You hesitated, your eyes darting back to Jungkook. His hands were clenched into fists, his knuckles wide, his breathing was shallow. You didn't care, not anymore. You slid your hand into Son's, allowing him to guide you away. Each step away from Jungkook felt like a betrayal, but you needed him to know what you felt, a fraction of the hurt he had caused you. Jungkook stood rooted to the spot, his body stiff. The air around him seemed to grow colder as he rose to walk away with another man. His nails dug into his palms, and he bit down on his lip hard enough to draw blood. "Vine," he whispered under his breath, the name slipping out like a prayer, but you were already gone, and the darkness swallowed him whole. Jungkook stood there, his knuckles white as he clenched his fist. The echoes of Soon's voice and your own still rang in his ears. His chest felt heavy, a mix of anger and pain swirling inside him. Then a cold voice from behind snapped him back to reality. "Now you're happy." Jungkook spun around, his eyes meeting Taehyung's sharp gaze. Taehyung stepped closer, a bitter chuckle escaping his lips. "You should be happy, right? You rejected her. Isn't that what you wanted?" Jungkook's jaw tightened. "Why would I be happy? Then why did you do it?" Taehyung's voice was low but dangerous, like a storm waiting to break. Jungkook looked up, his voice strained. You know why? Because of your father. Taehyung's eyes narrowed. You mean because you are a coward? Jungkook's fist tightened. Your father made me promise Tae. He told me to stay away from Wyan after the day when the enemies kidnapped us. He said he didn't want me in your lives. Taeyong grabbed Jungkook by the collar, pulling him close. His voice was a harsh whisper. And you just listened? You, the Mafia king, bowed down to a promise. Jungkook's eyes filled with pain. You think it was easy? Do you know how it feels to watch her with someone else? To tell her I don't love her when every part of me is screaming that I do. Then do something. Young's grip tightened. Where is your mafia mind? Where is the Jungkook who fights for what he wants, or did that part of you die the day you made that promise? Jungkook's voice cracked. I did it to protect her. If anything happened to her because of me, Taehyung let go of his collar, pushing him back, protecting her by breaking her heart, by breaking your own. Jungkook stumbled back, his back hitting the cold wall. His breathing was heavy, his chest rising and falling rapidly. If you truly love her, marry her. Take her away from all this. If you can't, then forget. I'm your best friend because I won't let you hurt her anymore. Taehyung said, his voice filled with finality. Jungkook stared at him, his own emotions a tangled mess. Taehyung turned away sharply. I don't want to hear it. Either be the man she deserves or walk away forever. With that, Taehyung stormed out from there in his car, his hands gripping the steering as he raised the speed. Jungkook fell to his knees, his hands gripping his hair. He let out a scream, raw and broken, the sound bouncing in the air. His body trembled and tears slipped from his eyes, his carefully constructed walls shattering around him. I'm sorry, Van, he whispered, his voice hoarse. He reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out the pendant he had kissed earlier. His thumb ran over its smooth surface, his vision blurred by his tears. The environment around felt colder, emptier. His mind raced with Taehyung's words, marry her, be the man she deserves. Jungkook sat there on the cold floor, his heart a battlefield of love and fear. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't know what his next move should be. You came home, your feet dragging as if each step weighed a ton. The living room lights were dimmed, but your father and Taehyung sat on the couch waiting. Your father's stern face turned toward you, his eyes sharp and questioning. Man, he called, his voice steady. Why didn't you go for dinner with Son? You halted, gripping the strap of your handbag. I'm not interested, Dad. Your father stood up, his imposing figure casting a shadow. Not interested in dinner or not interested in Son? Dad, stop it, you murmured, lowering your head. You clenched your fist, struggling to hold back the flood of emotions, anger, pain, the ache of betrayal. Say it, Wine, his voice rose, demanding. I know you're not interested in this marriage because you love that man Jungkook, don't you? Your lips pressed into a thin line. You knew he already had his answer. Silence was your only defense. I told you before, and I will tell you again, he said, each word a hammer to your fragile resolve. Forget about Jungkook and marry soon. He's a successful, good man, and most importantly, he's a normal person with no enemies. You swallowed a bitter taste, coating your tongue. I understand, Dad. I just need some time. Time won't change reality. This is for your own good. His voice softened, but the weight of his words didn't. Without waiting for more, you turned and bolted up the stairs. Tears blurred your vision as you rushed into your room, slamming the door shut behind you. You leaned against the door, your chest heaving, the sobs you had been holding in finally breaking free. You moved to the window, pushing it open to the Let the cool night air brush against your tear-stained cheeks. The stars twinkled indifferently, their beauty a painful contrast to the storm inside you. You bit your lip, tasting the salt of your tears. As you stared at the night sky lost in the window, a gentle knock pulled you from your daze. Van Tung's voice was soft, hesitant. You turned and seeing your brother's concerned face was enough to break the dam. You rushed into his arms, your fingers clutching his shirt as you sobbed against his chest. Oh, Pa! Your voice was muffled, shaking. I don't want this marriage. Tung's arms wrapped around you, his hand moved gently up and down your back. I know, Van, I know. Your tears soaked into his shirt, and he let you cry without interruption. His steady presence was a balm, the only comfort you could find. His fingers threaded through your hair, a familiar gesture from your childhood when nightmares seemed too real. I can't see you like this, he whispered, his own pain seeped into his voice, a quiet rage simmering beneath his calm exterior. You pulled back slightly, your eyes puffy and red. Dad won't listen, Oppa. He thinks Son is perfect just because he's safe. But my heart isn't with him. Taehyung jaw clenched. I know where your heart is with that idiot. His voice turned sharp and you flinched. Jungkook shouldn't have hurt you like this. You shook your head, fresh tears pooling. He didn't hurt me. It's not his fault. I know he loves me, Oppa. I saw it in his eyes, but something is stopping him. What could stop him? His pride? His promises? Taehyung's voice grew louder, his frustration breaking through. Wine, you deserve better. You deserve someone who won't push you away. You sank onto your bed, pulling your knees to your chest. But I don't want better. I want him. Taehyung kneeled in front of you, his hands resting on your knees. Then fight for him. Don't let Dad or anyone decide your life. You have the right to choose. I'm scared. Your voice was a whisper, a confession. What if he really doesn't want me? Taehyung's eyes softened. I know my best friend Wan. He wants you, but he's tangled in something I don't understand. And if he doesn't step up soon, I will make him. You managed a weak smile. You're always on my side. Always. He tucked a strand of hair behind your ear. And if I have to drag Jungkook here by his collar, I will. You let out a soft, shaky laugh. You would do that for me? Taehyung's lips curled into a smirk. Of course, but first, you need to rest. We'll handle this together, okay? You nodded, the weight of exhaustion finally pulling you under. Taehyung stayed by your side, his presence a silent promise, and as your eyes fluttered shut, the only image in your mind was Jungkook's face, the boy you loved, the man who had broken your heart, and the only one who could piece it back together. A week passed by, and the long dreaded day had finally arrived. In just 6 hours, you were supposed to become a bride, but as you sat in your bridal room, draped in a robe, your heart pounded with fear and confusion. Your mind was a tangled mess of emotions, anger, hurt, and sadness. All week you had been drowning in a sea of thoughts about Jungkook. How could he leave you like this? How could he abandon the love of his life? Your hands trembled as you stared into the mirror, your reflection staring back at you with hollow eyes. Just then a faint sound caught your attention. You turned, but before you could react, a cloth was pressed against your mouth. The strong, bitter smell of chloroform filled your senses, and your vision blurred. The room around you spun, and you felt your consciousness slip away. When you woke up, your head throbbed, and your vision was hazy. You blinked rapidly, and as your surroundings came into focus, your breath hissed. Jungkook stood in front of you, leaning casually against the wall, his arms crossed over his chest. "Good morning, princess," he said, his voice smooth and calm. Your eyes widened and you scrambled up from the soft mattress. "Jungkook, what is this? Why did you kidnap me?" He chuckled, pushing off the wall and walking towards you with slow, deliberate steps. Because your brother challenged me to be the man you deserve. You narrowed your eyes, the anger balling up again. So you didn't do this out of love, just because of a challenge? Jungkook raised an eyebrow, but before he could respond, you slid off the bed. Turning away from him, you took a step, but his hand shot out, gripping your wrist. His pull was gentle yet firm, and within a second you found yourself pressed against his chest. His breath fanned your face, warm and tinged with mint. Your noses were nearly touching, your breaths mingling. His dark eyes bored into yours, and the world around you seemed to fade away. Mine, he whispered, his voice softer this time. I love you. I can live without breathing, but not without you. You swallowed hard, trying to push down the fluttering in your chest. Your lips pressed into a thin line, and you turned your face away, about for me. Well, I hate you. Jungkook's eyes widened, then he chuckled, the sound vibrating through his chest. He let go of your wrist, only to step around and face you again. He gently lifted your chin with his fingers, forcing you to meet his gaze. I deserve that, he said with a sigh. I'm sorry, Vine, I hurt you. I was a coward and gave importance to the promise over my love, but now I can convince your father about safety because I eliminated every threat. It took me a week to do this, that's why I stayed silent. Still, I'm here now. You perked up, a mischievous glint in your eyes. Any punishment? He nodded, his expression serious. Anything. You tapped your chin, pretending to think, then you dropped the bombshell. No romance for 6 months, even if you marry me. Jungkook's jaw dropped. What? You crossed your arms over your chest, a smirk playing on your lips. You said you would accept any punishment. His face contoured into a mix of disbelief and frustration. But 6 months are serious. You nodded firmly. Very serious. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, his expression priceless. He bit his lower lip, a habit of his when he was stressed. This is cruel. You shrugged nonchalantly. Actions have consequences, Jungkook. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing playfully. What if I make you break your own rule? You scoffed through your cheeks heated up. You can try, but I have strong willpower. Jungkook leaned down, his lips mere inches from yours. His breath tickled your skin, and his voice dropped to a sultry whisper. Challenge accepted, Mrs. John. A shiver ran down your spine, but you stood your ground. Keep dreaming, Mr. John. He straightened, his expression shifting to pure determination. Alright, Van, if I can't romance you for a month, then I'll make you fall in love with me every single day without a single touch. You raised an eyebrow, curious. And how do you plan to do that? Jungkook smirked, backing away slowly, his eyes never leaving yours. You will see. And with that, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving you standing there, your heart racing and your mind spinning with what just happened. The game had begun, and you had no idea what Jungkook had planned. But one thing was clear, you were no longer a bride about to marry a man you didn't love. You were now the center of Jungkook's world, and he would stop at nothing to win your heart. Here the wedding hall buzzed with whispers, guests exchanged concerned glances, and the air was thick with confusion. Son paced angrily, his expression twisted in frustration. What is this, uncle? He demanded, his voice sharp. I thought she was ready to marry me, but now she has run away from the wedding. Your father's face tightened. Don't say that, Son. My daughter would never go against my words. Son scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. Shut up, uncle. I thought she was a good woman, but she's just a gold digger. She ran to her Mafia boyfriend. A sudden harsh slap echoed through the room. Son stumbled back, his cheek red with the imprint of your father's hand. How dare you speak of my daughter like that? Your father shouted, his voice trembling with both anger and hurt. Leave now. Soon glared, rubbing his cheek. You'll regret this. He turned on his heel and stormed out, leaving the hall in stunned silence. Taehyung stepped forward, his voice steady. Dad, will you finally accept that Jungkook is better than anyone else? For a promise he made to you, he was ready to give up his love of 7 years. But look at Soon. Is he really the kind of man you wanted for her? Your father's shoulders slumped, realization dawning on his face. I thought Son was a good man, but he isn't, Tang insisted. He showed his true colors just now. Wine would never find happiness or peace with him. Just then the large doors to the hall creaked open. All heads turned as you and Jungkook entered. His hand held yours firmly, but your expression was cautious. Your father moved forward swiftly, and without warning, his hand struck Jungkook's face. The sharp sound made you flinch. Tell me, Jungkook, your father's voice was raw. Tell me my daughter didn't run away with you. Jungkook straightened his cheek red, but his gaze unwearying. No, uncle, I kidnapped her, but she never intended to run away. She was waiting for you to give her hand to me. Tears shimmered in your eyes. That I loved him. Silence enveloped the room, each heartbeat a thunder in your ears. Your father's hardened face softened, the lines of age and worry deepening as he exhaled slowly. I was wrong, he muttered. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only hurting you. He reached out, gripping your face with trembling hands. I'm sorry, Vine. If Jungkook is the one your heart wants, then I give you my blessings. Emotion overwhelmed you. You threw your arms around him and he held you tight as if afraid to let go. Taehyung's eyes shone with unshed tears. He stepped closer, pulling you both into a warm embrace. Finally, he whispered, it deserved this happiness. Jungkook stood still, his lips pressed into a thin line as he fought his own emotions. Thank you, uncle, he said, his voice rough with gratitude. Your father looked at him and a small, approving nod passed between them. Take care of her. If you hurt her, I will hurt him first. Taehyung cut in with a grin, his voice light but his eyes serious. The room seemed to breathe again, the tension dissolving into soft smiles and quiet cheers. Jungkook's family stepped forward, surrounding you both with warmth and love. His mother pulled you into a gentle hug, her voice soothing as she welcomed you into the family. Your marriage to Jungkook happened in that same hall. The verbs felt sacred, the words you exchanged filled with love and promise. The ceremony was intimate, just close family and friends, but it felt like the world had finally aligned in. When the priest announced you as husband and wife, Jungkook turned to you, his eyes glistening. Finally, Mrs. John, he whispered. You giggled through your tears. Finally. Taehyung clapped the loudest, his joy palpable. Wine, you better not forget me now that you have your Mafia king. He teased, bringing a wave of laughter to the room. As the day turned to evening, you and Jungkook sat hand in hand, surrounded by family. Taehyung leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. He had his best friend back and his sister's happiness was secured. And you looking at Jungkook knew this was just the beginning of a love story that had already endured so much, ready to thrive under the light of newfound acceptance and unbreakable love. Thank you for watching.